Hi, everybody. My name is Geoff Pangman from Accenture, and I'm here to talk about AI in media as it relates to audience engagement and monetization. Um, just to kind of set the stage as a kind of a quick baseline. The reality is that media organizations, they don't really have a data collection problem today, per se, but they do have a decisioning problem. And really, it comes down to the fact that there's mountains of audience and content, commercial telemetry that all exist today, but because data is trapped in silos, organizations default to manual, latency-heavy analysis and adjustment. So the discussion needs to focus instead on crossing that gap and shifting from the passive data reporting to active real-time intelligence. And in the next few minutes, we'll just walk through our approach to deploy that agentic layer on top of an autonomously executes monetization and personalization strategies at scale. And really, this is the way that Microsoft and Accenture are working to bring this to markets around unified capabilities of strategy, platform, and then execution. So the current reality today is that change is constant, right? And from a macro trending point of view, technology forces industry shifts every 5 to 10 years. And current, like this, so at the front of our chevron there, we're talking about the shift from linear to digital, which really expanded a lot of the reach in the marketplace, and it permanently fractured a lot of the distribution economics around kind of that built-in scale that was the advantage of linear. But the subsequent shift then to digital, really, that solved for the scale question, but then the operational complexity only increased. And now we're crossing into this agentic phase, which we obviously kind of skipped the Gen AI base step, but we're moving into the agentic phase now, where the constraint isn't compute power. It's really the ability to leverage the compute and decide when and where and how to act appropriately. And that means that the strategic mandate is really about embedding intelligence throughout, from an operations point of view, all the way through so we understand where market winners are going through and how those will be operationalizing that intelligence rather than just collecting data. So that absolutely makes sense, but continuing to address a lot of those industry changes, we need to understand that we're also seeing the top line growth has stalled, subscriber saturation across markets has also stalled, and that really just means that we're having user acquisition costs increasing and increasing and increasing. Never mind the additional kind of Wall Street wacky pressures that they put on the market every so often. As we're talking about, first we need subs, now we need ARPU, yada yada. Anyhow, simultaneously, we're also living in a space where the safety net of linear TV, it's disappearing, if not gone, right? I think over the last decade, it's dropped about 50%. And what that really means to do is that operations have struggled to adapt at best, right? Because content, audience, commercial data, they remain trapped in disconnected silos. And as a result, those human operators have become that integration layer that force teams into that labor-intensive workflow for scheduling and ops, which simply doesn't scale effectively. So the operational reality is pretty clear. The problem can't be outgrown. The opportunity needs to be out-operated. So what this means, and just moving in, this is what we're hearing from the marketplace. So we do a lot of, as Accenture, we do a lot of polls and sessions with both industry leaders and industry workers and folks throughout the entire supply chain. And really, here's something you wouldn't actually know if you were walking the NBA floor this year, right? The industry is well aware that the classic media operating model is unattainable, unsustainable today. I don't think that's a secret, but feels like a dirty secret here when we talk about orchestration and everything. Anyway, so what we're seeing from the top, one of the big ones is 2 out of 3 leaders are reporting intense pressure to produce more content, right? We have to drive more revenue. We have less resources and less timeline to get it done as well. So that means that 15% of broadcast organizations are actually prepared to implement AI workflows. I think to be perfectly honest, I think that number is way too high also. I think it's more like 1 in 20, but that's here and there, I suppose. But the market feedback has also been consistent, though. Fragmentation is actively blocking evolution. So what that really means is many organizations are simultaneously running legacy infrastructure. They're running new apps. They're running old CPE, new CPE. And all of this with, that's, like I mentioned, that swath of unrelated tech stacks, unrelated teams, and siloed data. And the current approach creates that duplicative and redundant work that limits visibility, it limits efficiency, and it really, really doesn't help move the needle on revenue. So as we move on down to, we talk about the value how value is shifting, and the key goal is the opportunity around following the revenue. So let's be clear. So enough doom and gloom, right? We already highlighted a lot of data siloed. Scale is impossible. No, we have an opportunity here, and that's at the value prop across the media supply chain. It's aggressively shifting upward, right? And that means that the foundational infrastructure, like playout, delivery, basic distribution, it's all heavily commoditized. And that vendor competition is driving that race to the bottom pricing. So the growth here with opportunity is the only reliable path left is around margin expansion, right? So monetization across the whole revenue mix. So that means ad-supported streaming. We've seen it grow. It's in a 4x growth curve. It's capturing that value that requires automation. Decisions around ad yield, dynamic pricing, personalized subscription retention is really what we need to be focusing on. So the goal isn't just about efficiency, though. It's about revenue expansion then. Because differentiation is moving from pipes and process and legacy decisions to actually real-time dynamic decision. So how do we make our streaming platforms agent ready, right? This is about architecting for the agents. And what that really means is we have to capture the revenue by re-architecting agent-ready architectures. So platform APIs need to be more discoverable. They need to be more orchestratable, maybe even standardized. Because if your platform can't be orchestrated, if we can't build those flywheels into other vendors, other opportunities, or even slightly easier SI, we will remain stuck in pilot phases, or we're going to hit ROI dead ends for POCs. And that just means we, again, don't find the opportunity to appropriately deploy and scale generative AI and agentic AI in a workflow. So only after we can do that can we really deploy that intelligence engine as an overlay. And to be clear, this isn't just another dashboard, right? This is an active execution layer that needs to sit on top of an existing player to ingest cross-functional signals, strategic decisioning, and then actually make some of that orchestration execution decisions, as well as obviously provide visibility and some dashboard views also. But that is not the key goal. The key goal is around orchestration and end-to-end data collection and leveraging. So how do we do this? Our approach is around that. Is around delivering this requires that dual engine architecture like the Azure AI Foundry. The intelligence engine decides it's always on, it's always running, it's predicting churn, it's simulating pricing opportunities and models, it's generating ROI-driven recommendations based on live data. An orchestration engine is acting by executing on those decisions then. It's using the autonomous agents and the plans to make your stack more intelligent and really equip and further enable your teams to learn, grow, and increase efficiency and or revenue. Crucially, it requires strict governance, though. And the routing actions within those defined policy guardrails really need to be set so that humans are ensured to be able to retain that ultimate oversight, as well as visibility to compliance needs and any other legal aspects that are going to be an increase in the media supply chain, less than a decrease in the future if we consider anything for SAG-AFTRA, et cetera, retaining creative freedom, PII, et cetera. So back down to, so how's it going to work from an operational perspective? So to touch here, we have this high-level ad monetization flow that we put together. So the step one is ingestion, right? So that's where we are going to grab, audience behavior. We're going to get available ad inventory, commercial pacing data. It's all pulled real time. In this case, with Azure AI Search and Cosmos database, right? So, and then step two is going to be the intelligence action, where the Azure Open AI models then detect patterns, such as localized demand, spikes in that demand, or maybe even under delivery, underperformance, and they calculate a recommended intervention. Step three then is the orchestration on top, which is then the decision of where the AI agents can actually execute and fix by autonomously reallocating most of those budgets or even adjusting some of the pacing and pricing parameters. And you can do that through the Foundry, through Azure Container Apps. So the final step is then the feedback loop, which is absolutely key to learning and making future decisions and understanding how effective were decisions today and how we can make them better tomorrow. And this is where the system is going to continually measure, it's going to continually understand, it's going to continually project financial outcomes, and then feed that back into the intelligence engine. And that effectively replaces that static optimization cycle that exists today with continuous automated execution, which, let's be honest, that's Valhalla, that's the goal. So by shifting from manual transactional work, we get to an agentic execution that immediately impacts monetization, right? So first, the agents are optimized They optimize total inventory and yield across both linear and digital environments, which then allows that digital or the dynamic reallocation of budgeting. Second, we look across with the cross-channel signals and the trigger automations, and we can drive lifetime value. We can identify win-back interventions before churn actually occurs. It's identifying trends, it's identifying data points, and it's making decisions and creating tactical moves that are options for an operator to choose from before they even happen. I mean, come on, it's amazing. That's amazing to be able to implement in an automated fashion, actually, not just for like training or fixing or updating, but across to make recommendations to optimize revenue. This is something that hasn't really been adapted at scale yet. But the key thing here is that these are actually implementable capabilities today. These aren't theoretical concepts. This is legitimate. It's just a matter of not only technology, it's all a matter of understanding the operational process, the value, and aligning a lot of those capabilities around it. So then we move back here into the personalization at scale, which is the other aspect here that really drives some of the data on top of that we'd use for ad revenue optimization as well. And this is where that personalization also has to transition from that UI feature. Currently, from the UX, it lives in the UI. It's a more core system capability, right? Real-time recommendations need to shift away from like batch trained models and like macro trends and move more toward live contextual like mission and session based decisions that really factor things like day, device, service, vertical or horizontal video, live or prefer to be live. Do I prefer to watch live sports except with a 10-minute a 10-minute delay to it, just to skip commercials? Learning the usage habits is not a UX item; it's across the supply chain, because that provides visibility into how people are leveraging content, as well as searching for content, and where you can effectively advertise to them as well. So that re-engagement then moves from static broadcast campaigns to individual triggers based on a lot of that predictive data. And again, going back to like the always on, if with that from an experimentation perspective, it replaces kind of periodic A/B testing. It can replace kind of anything that would be automatically driving UI variants. It really gives the opportunity to drive live engagement as well as try out new opportunities without as much of a user loss or a long-term spin out. Just for reference, I come from an MSO background, and I just remember guides spinning out from the carousel and it taking 2 weeks almost for one footprint through a head end to actually have a guide update. We're not there anymore. We're to the point where we can actually update, and I could be watching a guide on one and my wife could be watching another one, and it could be a different guide that's optimized to both of us, both in the same service. It's an incredible evolution in the last 15 years. Finally, as a key kind of takeaway here, and we wrap up, I want to highlight maybe the 3 primary things to take away. First, it's architecture streaming platforms to be agent ready. Right? That means we have to ensure that we have standardized APIs. It means that we need canonical data models. It means we need to drive consistency, alignment, and a lot of consolidation of workflows to ensure that we are able to deploy solutions to address common problems that may not be consistent from the technology perspective today or from the teams that are operating them. Second is deploying that intelligence layer as an engine overlay to drive operational decisions and not just passive insights. I think I've touched on that one a whole bunch here. So move to the third, which is to target the high value and specific use cases. In this case, for monetization, we want to talk things like ad yield optimization, right? As well as personalized retention and really proving out the unit economics before you identify the scale, which, by the way, is also a core component of a lot of generative AI COE and core methodology approaches, which is understand the value, understand the ROI, have a plan for scale, and clear definitions for success around POCs. Right. So with that, you can actually build that, again, architect it in, plan for it, make sure you're working on the right use cases and understanding what success actually looks like. And with that success, how you can actually scale it effectively and quickly. And these are the practical next steps to really assess the current platform readiness too. So I would encourage you, if it's interesting to anybody, come give us come talk to us, and we can identify a couple of high value use cases just in conversation and kind of understand and even map out kind of pilot orchestration approach and layer. So thank you for your time, everybody. Appreciate it.